I'm just wondering, right? Because non-believers and believers, they basically just presuppose like there is a god or there is not a god, and then they just like live their life based on that.
No,
So I'm just thinking,
there's no presupposition involved. The question is there a God? And then
yeah, I know, I understand that because I am a strong agnostic, right? I feel that the ontological existence of God is unknowable, so we have to live our life based on presupposition. So I believe non-believers, they live their life assuming that there is no God, right? And theistic people.
why do you use the word presupposition though?
Okay, so I would assume if you are an atheist, right, you believe there is no eternal justice. You assume there is no objective morality, right?
Yeah.
You assume hard determinism is true.
No.
Yeah, all these are worldviews, right?
No. Generally, or elements of, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
So
I don't assume that hard determinism is true, but that's
yeah, I know
that's okay.
there are certain nuance. Yeah, I understand. It's a generalization. So I'm just wondering, why? Because I believe I'm an agnostic theist, right? I believe in the parsimoniously a basic theistic God, which is like tri-omni, right? So I believe there's eternal justice, i.e., if a criminal were to blow up a children's hospital and immediately dies a painless death via like carbon monoxide, right? It feels that justice is not complete and moral virtues does not align with happiness. So there is no punishment for him. And it's something that's very tragic. So if there is an benevolent God, right, who have this vision of afterlife or ultimate justice or eternal justice, it makes sense, right? And then why would we want to subject ourselves to moral relativism if there is, and why, if there's an omnibenevolent God, he would want to have some sort of objective morality? And
because it just seems like that's the way it is. I mean,
I know, I understand that.
not having justice is really not a problem of nature. It is a problem for us because we want
I
there
know,
to
I
be
know.
justice.
Because we are both presupposing different kinds of worldview. I'm just saying the atheistic worldview seems to me like, for example, moral subjectivity, no eternal justice. It seems had meaningless, or subjectivity is their premise. It would lead to nihilism and a certain form of depression. So like why would non-believers, right, why would they presume that and then live their
Well,
life off that,
again,
right?
I got to stop you because
Yeah.
we do not presume. We do not have presuppositions. We come to this conclusion because it is what reality appears to be. That
No,
we make that
because
judgment. It is what.
Um, ho-
wait.
ho-
Uh, can I answer the host? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Go ahead,
So
Kush.
so you said you don't presuppose, right?
right.
But you do presuppose that God
I
does not
think the host
exist,
just said
right?
something.
Hold on, I want to hear what Kush had to say.
Yeah.
Hello, Kush.
All right, so I just wanted to clarify. Right, so atheism is not a worldview.
Yeah.
Atheism simply means a person who does not believe or is not convinced that a God exists. Period. Point blank.
Yes. That
Right?
itself is a worldview, right?
So that's not a
No,
worldview.
that's not
You
a
cannot
worldview.
say that specifically is a worldview. Same thing with theism. If I were to say, well, theists believe in a a singular God, that would not be honest because there are polytheists out there. There are other people who believe in multiple gods. So that wouldn't be an honest statement. So you cannot make one statement about all atheists outside of the fact that we are not convinced that a God exists.
Yes.
So it is not a
No, I mean,
worldview. It is not some all organized thing where we all believe the same, view. It's simply atheism. Is simply a lack of belief in a God, and theism is simply a belief in a God. You
yes,
cannot
yes.
add any more to that or take any
Yes,
more
yes,
away
yes.
from that.
Because
So it's not a worldview. So don't try to say it's a worldview.
And,
yeah,
and I
let
agree with
me
that.
let me tell you why.
There are
Yeah.
elements of it that you can take all these different elements and build a worldview, but atheism by itself, it is just an opinion on one question.
I know. I'm saying it's a worldview is because you guys live your life assuming that God does not exist, right?
Well, it's the
Unless you
same
want to tell me
reason,
that
That's an
but
assumption. That's not true at all.
Hayden, understand, it is no more an influential worldview than it is that we live our lives in accordance to the belief that there are no unicorns. It is not sufficient enough to make a worldview.
it's completely different, right? Because you are talking about you're talking about a necessary being, right? So we are not talking about fairy tales. So you're basically
We are
what I can
talking.
say is
Okay, go ahead.
what I can say is I believe 90%, right? 90% of the non-believers, they do not believe in objective morality. They do not believe in eternal justice. They do not believe in free will, right? I mean, I can say all these are basic, are very general consensus kind of a
I don't
worldview
know
that
about I don't know
non-believers take.
if the
Yeah.
free will is 90%. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
that I can agree, but I believe majority of them do not believe in objective morality.
Yeah,
They do not believe in
I'll give
any
you
sort
that.
of
I'll give
eternal
you those
justice.
two.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that you're correct
these
on.
are these are worldviews, right? And you live your life based on that.
Okay, Hayden,
So
you got to stop saying these are worldviews because we have just told you that they are not. Okay, so you can't listen to us and then totally ignore us and then repeat the same thing. That is at the very least impolite. So please stop doing that.
yeah, but if you agree that 90% of them believes, like 90% of non-believers believes or it entails that these kind of precepts, like these kind of precepts controls or dictates their life, right?
Well, let's take just the one, okay? Let's take the justice one, okay?
Okay.
Because you're putting a lot in a basket, and it's just the overgeneralization sometimes leads to inaccuracies. So let's just take the one about justice. So there is no inherent justice in the universe. You're correct there that we believe that, and that appears to conform with reality. And in the theistic position, you can say that that God is the judge, right? So ultimately, there's some sort of karmic justice.
I would say it's omnibenevolent. So there has to be some sort of a eternal justice, even after you die.
Why does there have to be eternal justice?
If God is omnibenevolent, any sort of crime, I gave an example previously, right? A criminal blows up a children's hospital and kills all the children inside, and then he just commits suicide and just dies a painless death.
You got to stop on the words that TikTok does not allow. So
Sorry, underline.
Yeah. But I'm asking you a simpler question though, because let's take God out of the question, the hypothesis for a second, and say we don't know if a God exists ontologically. So why do you think that we must have justice?
No, we cannot live our life saying I do not know, right? We always presuppose, right?
No.
For example,
not if we're being intellectually honest and we're using our thinking caps.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question, right? Do you, when you live your life, right, do you presuppose that there's a God, or
I do
you
not.
presuppose that there is no God?
I do not.
Yes. Yeah. You won't say that. I have no idea. I'll just live my life haphazardly, right? No, right?
Hey, Hayden, you got to listen to what I say and not put your own ideas into my head, okay? Because I just answered your question and you ignored my answer. I do not presuppose there's a God. I do not presuppose there is no God. Okay? I have, the question has come upon me, is there a God? However it came up, who remembers at my age, right? And I considered the question, and my answer is, it seems like there is no God. That I don't have enough reason to believe in a God.
Maybe
so that is not a presupposition. That is a conclusion based on thinking.
Maybe I maybe I use my word.
Quick
But yeah.
question.
Go ahead,
Quick
Kurt.
question. Would you label yourself as an agnostic atheist, I would assume, or a Gnostic atheist?
Me?
Are you Gnostic in your view
I'm agnostic
about
atheist.
your agnostic? Same here, meaning we don't claim to know.
Yeah.
That's all that means. So agnostic atheist means that we don't hold a belief. We aren't convinced that a God exists. That's where the atheist part comes in. And agnostic is we don't claim to know. Is like if I were to make a claim to say I believe X is true, but I cannot prove that X is true, then I am agnostic in that view, but I still hold that, whatever
Sure,
belief.
I fully understand. Agnostic.
Right. Well, I just
fully
wanted to clarify because there's a lot of theists that I come across that can't understand these basic definitions. So
yeah, but
from the argument that you was providing, it's almost like you're not like understanding that. Like we're not claiming to know because no one in this live.
I'm not talking about knowledge, right? I'm not talking about knowledge. I'm talking about how you live your life. You live your life as if you believe that there's no God, right? You believe that there's no God. That's my premise.
Well, okay, hold on, Chris.
That's not accurate.
Let me put my 2 cents on this one to the bit of a middle ground. Belief. I use a belief scale of 0 to 100. So when you get to belief, you have crossed 50%. So you think something, if you believe something, you think it is more likely than not. Or vice versa, if you disbelieve it, you think it's less likely than not. So it's 49% down. So I am agnostic because I am aware that I cannot be at 0 because I don't know everything. Just like a theist cannot be a Gnostic theist, but you can't be at 100% because you don't know everything either. So, however, I am below 50% in the belief, which means disbelief, to say I am confident that there is no God, but that is not an absolute position. So you're right.
Yeah.
You're right in the sense that I do live my life with the opinion that I am not convinced there is a God, and as time has gone on, that disbelief has gotten stronger and stronger because we know explanations for a lot of things, and to a larger because all of the Christian apologetics have logically failed.
Yeah. So, that's my whole premise, right? So, you do not need to believe in a Christian God. You can believe in a theistic God. So it's parsimoniously basic, like tri-omni, right? I mean, that is enough to give your life a certain sort of alignment between moral virtue and happiness, right? Gives your life some sort of a meaning, objectivity.
But here's the thing: I don't consider the meaning something that exists in the universe. So, but I do realize that there's a distinction between. Thank you for the follow. See, I do see that there's a distinction between wanting to have an inherent meaning and not being comfortable with not having one. And that's what I'm seeing a lot on the theistic side, where they use the logic that you're trying to say, that you're trying to force meaning upon us.
No. We're not forcing anyone, right? We're just saying that an atheistic worldview, which I know you would say that is a wrong term, but basically someone lives their life assuming that they do not believe in God, right? It would mean moral relativism, subjectivity, no eternal justice.
Yes, and why are you uncomfortable with that? Why are you uncomfortable with that?
It's not being uncomfortable or not, right? These kind of concepts. Why are you
uncomfortable with that? Or are you uncomfortable with that?
I'm not. I'm just saying that all these.
So are you comfortable then with a universe that has no meaning and no justice?
I'm comfortable with it. I'm comfortable with that, but I'm asking, like, why do you want to live as if these concepts, right, are what you truly believe in?
Because I don't want to pretend of something that is not real, and it appears to me that reality is such that there is no inherent meaning and there is no inherent guaranteed justice.
Because both of us believing in something as a presup and then living our life accordingly, right? So you are presupposing that you believe that God does not exist. And
Giving you a
itself,
timeout for saying presup again. Okay? I am not presupposing. You need to pull that word from your vocabulary when you're talking about atheists, at least to me. Because you're not listening.
Okay, so
Okay.
let me ask you the question. Right? So you are living your life based on a belief that God does not exist, right?
That is a sideline. Thank you for joining the team. That is
That's not a sideline.
That is a minimal sideline.
The main premise. It's the main premise that I'm talking about, right? So do you live your life believing that God does not exist or not?
I don't know, but I largely am convinced that it does not. Oh, thank you.
Right. I just wanted to clarify. This is probably where me and the host probably disagree. When we say God, I view that as a fairly abstract concept. So not just in a sort of religious sense, but like there are like people who are in like spirituality who believe in some sort of spiritual God. And once we delve into spirituality, that could literally be anything. You know what I mean? Like, so if that is the case, we have multiple ideas of what a God can be. It isn't just specifically a religious sense. Now, where I would probably agree with the host is in any sort of religious sense, the term God, I am highly skeptical of, probably to the point to where I would say I am convinced that I think that is made up. But, and I don't know, I may be wrong about some things here, but like if we're talking about God in an abstract sense, it could be anything. And if there is some sort of like creative force or sentient, being behind all this, maybe that being might share a few traits with some of the, views or ideologies or, like beliefs that we have.
No, yeah,
So
I understand that, but
in
but
that
this is not
sense,
but this is not the topic,
that's all
right?
I'm saying.
We are talking about our beliefs, and then we act accordingly based on our belief, right? So when you say I cannot use that word presup on you, but I'm actually trying to tell you that you are living your life based on a belief, right? That there's no God. So that itself is a presupposition, right?
It's a belief. Why do you call it a presupposition if I told you it's a belief based on a conclusion? It's based on a consideration and a conclusion. Why do you have to call that a presup? Yeah. What does presup mean? I mean, check the dictionary. What does it mean?
Yeah, it means you have to like even if you do not have true knowledge, you are presupposing something, and then you're acting accordingly. You're acting accordingly and live your life accordingly based on that belief.
That would be different based on if you were to observe something and be convinced of something, and then come to a conclusion based on what you have observed.
Presupposition. Okay, listen to the definition. Presupposition of an action, process, or argument requires as a precondition. Sorry, this is bad grammar. Requirement as a precondition of possibility. Okay, it is not. We do not have a precondition. A precondition is like a free, like giving somebody a free get out of jail card or something. Here's this predetermined set of knowledge piece of knowledge that you don't have to question. We question, is there a God? And we have come to the conclusion that we don't see a reason to believe in this thing. So that is a conclusion based on consideration. It is not a presupposition. So, but I want to go further because I want you to get your question out. I want you to get past this so you can ask the question that you're trying to ask.
Yes, true. Okay, just one last thing. I need to talk about this again. So, something that is epistemically true, or something that is a belief, It's two distinctive thing, right? So when you say that you're an agnostic atheist, right? Yeah, you are weak agnostic means that you lack certain sort of knowledge, but you think that it can be attained, right? But then your belief.
No. We know that at an absolute, knowledge cannot be obtained because we.
So you are strong agnostic. You think God, that the ontological existence of God can never be known.
Yes.
Are you strong or weak? Okay,
Yeah.
so you are
the only thing that we
agnostic,
can be aware of is that our own mind exists at a pure level. So
Yeah.
we approach knowledge. We do our best in our lives to use methodologies that allow us to approach knowledge closer and closer and closer, but we can never be 100% sure that we are correct. So epistemically, there is no 100% epistemic knowledge.
Yeah, I understand that, right? So you are actually a strong agnostic atheist, right? So you
that's fair.
you know that you cannot know the existence of God.
No, I don't know. I don't. That's going too far. I don't know that I can't know. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. Because maybe you're right. I know that I can't know.
Yes.
But I don't know that it's unknowable. Because maybe
Yes, I understand that, right?
maybe something will come along to convince me.
No, that just contradicted what you said. What do you mean you understand that?
We are epistemically limited, right?
So
you're right. Yeah,
bro.
you're right. I did contradict myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
I'm talking
back to
about
my
him.
point, right?
Take that back.
I'm talking about Hayden.
Well, no, I did too. I did too. So go ahead, Hayden.
So yeah, we definitely based our life on the belief that there is a God or there is no God, right? So I'm saying
Among
the
other
atheistic
things.
worldview, which I have named a few, which I would assume 90% of them agree, right? No objective morality.
So move on, Hayden. What's your question here? What's
I'm
your
trying
point?
to repeat to make it clear. So eternal justice or any sort of objectivity in morality. Yeah, these kind of concepts, right? It would ultimately or gradually, right, lead to nihilism and depression, right? Yeah. That is.
Depression,
I mean, like why?
Depression, not for everybody.
Yes, not for everybody. I agree,
is susceptible to clinical depression.
but my question is, both of us have making a belief system, a belief, right, and then living our life accordingly. Like, why would you want to choose this belief and then lead your life?
Listen carefully.
This level.
Listen carefully. Belief is not a choice. You don't choose a belief like you choose a flavor of ice cream. Okay? If someone says to you,
I don't think so.
how many fingers are on your hand, you look at your hand and you count the damn fingers. You don't choose to believe how many fingers are on your hand.
Yeah, that's not a belief. That's a knowledge claim.
That is you have evidence. You make an observation, a conclusion. Logic is involved, evidence and whatever. Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you have a conclusion. There's no choice involved in that. So there's no choice in belief.
No, that is an epistemic claim, right? It's not a belief. A belief is a leap of faith without sufficient evidence. Without sufficient evidence.
No, you've got that completely wrong. Let's bring up belief.
Just Google it.
A belief is a feeling of certainty that something is true, or a conviction that someone or something is trustworthy. Well, it's the first one we're working with. It's a feeling of certainty that something is true. Okay. Now, in knowledge, in the philosophical world, knowledge is justified true belief. If you believe something, you consider it to be true. Okay.
Yeah. So if you have justified true, like if something is justified and true, it becomes epistemic truth, right? So like why do you need to believe it?
No, there's no epistemic truth. You can here's the catch here is knowledge is justified true belief, but you can never truly at an absolute have knowledge. We can approximate it. You can consider something to be true, and your belief will then be either correct or incorrect. You can have a true belief or a false belief. So you might be right or wrong in your belief. And if the thing really does exist and you believe it, that means you have true knowledge. If the thing does not exist but you believe it, that means you have false knowledge.
Yeah. So
There's no choice.
Yeah.
There's no choice being made here. If you're choosing, then you're pretending to take a side for no apparent reason. So you understand
Absolutely.
that?
No. Can you make justified true knowledge claims on the ontological existence of God? You can't, right?
Well,
can't.
we make approximations in science.
Yes. So
we make inferences that approximate that.
you can't only look at your view, right? There are also other worldviews.
We don't need worldview. We don't. Someone who uses a scientific methodology does not need worldview. I mean, we all should be aware of our biases, because we do have some biases. Everybody has some biases.
And scientism
scientism
is the one big bias, right? To talk about the ontological existence of God, because the ontological existence of God, we cannot use empirics to know it, right? It's very obvious, right? So these are also biases
why can't we use empirics? Tell us why.
So if the universe is contingent,
I agree that we can't use empirics, but what do you think?
Yeah. Same as you. I agree with you, right?
Because there's no evidence. That's why we can't do it. So either
evidence
there is not sufficient evidence for God. So either God exists and there's no evidence, so we'll never be aware of it, or God doesn't exist.
Your word evidence is very confusing. Do you say evidence based on empirics or evidence based on deductive reasoning?
That's why I usually use the phrase evidence or logic.
If you are like me, you do not believe empirics is necessary or can be used.
It does
to know the ontological existence of God. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Then why do you call it
physical evidence? Hold on. I talked over my mistake. Can you step back and repeat what you were just saying?
Yeah, you and me agrees that we cannot use empirics to know the ontological existence of God. Then why do you still keep asking for physical evidence?
Because what I don't do is I don't assume that a God exists. I maintain the possibility that it is possible that a God might not exist, in which case that would look exactly the same as a non-empirical deity.
Yeah, but if you and me agrees that empirics cannot be used, right? So then isn't it a bit dishonest to keep asking for physical evidence?
You're just not listening to what I'm saying at all, aren't you?
I am.
Okay,
I'm trying to understand.
Let's say, for example, that a God exists in a supernatural realm. Okay, meaning that it does not touch our laws of physics. If that's true, then we can have no knowledge of it, because
that's not true, right? We can use deductive reasoning.
We can try to use deductive reasoning. And we have tried to use deductive reasoning. Problem is, all those man, bear, pig. Hayden doesn't listen. I told you. Yeah, I'm trying to slow you down, Hayden. So if a deity exists that is supernatural, we have no access to know. So either it's there and we can't know it. Even
I agree with you.
Because we have used deductive reasoning, and those arguments have all failed. So it would be nice.
That's not true, right? That's not true.
It is.
If I could just throw
go ahead, Kush.
I would imagine if there is some sort of supernatural being somewhere, right? We cannot use, like, if that being is actually supernatural, we cannot use any sort of method that we use to understand our natural world for that being. That's not me saying that being can never be understood. Maybe it could be. Maybe we could somehow figure out how to understand the supernatural realm if there is one. But we can't use the methods that we use to understand the world around us. So here you are coming in here telling us us about things that exist beyond our reality, something that we cannot test for, we cannot demonstrate, we cannot prove, and your best argument is like, well, take my word for it. A lot of people believe in it. That's not going to cut it. Just letting you know. Like,
That's not
that's
my
not going to
reasoning.
get us anywhere.
I can
Right.
give
So,
you certain arguments. Yeah, deductive reasoning. So one of it
okay,
is
deductive reasoning.
Okay, first
Let's take that route.
off, I want to say
Sure.
hi to Fluff and give him a voice here.
Hi.
Fluff, what's your position?
Hi, everybody. Hey, Kush. Hayden.
Hey.
I am an atheist. I am also a deconstructor. And I came up to give you a break, a mental break, and a breather. Why? Because you have a fast talker that throws a lot of words and stays in the realm of presupposition, which, when Hayden comes up onto our panels, it doesn't last very long because we constantly remind you, Hayden. An entire world based upon what ifs crumbles in the face of facts. If you cannot back up every question with evidence, good evidence, then it stays in the realm of speculation, and it stays in the realm of philosophy, and it stays in the realm of what if. And like he said, please stop saying presuppose, and then broke down what a presupposition was. And that's why what I keep telling people, presuppositions do not work on skeptical or atheist panels. They only work with believers.
Yeah.
Because that is the only way you can safely narrow the scope, throw out information, throw out knowledge, and dangle in the realm of a transcendental God. Because God as a transcendental agent is irrelevant as a basis for ideology or theology or mythology. It always, once you put God outside of the realm of space and time, God goes far beyond your current understanding, and now goes into that realm of we don't know yet, because science can't even push that far past great expansion. So you keep trying to push the goalpost, like I tell you about the coyote's humping its skull. You can't keep pushing the goalpost further and further back. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're dancing the pivot pokey. You have to stay within the realm of the structure of gods as defined, because if you now start redefining God in Spinoza's God, then it is irrelevant to discuss God as an interfering agent or a relevant agent.
because it's
Well said.
It's not true, right? Because I already said parsimonious theistic God is tri-omni. And I believe every single one of us, we live life based on a precept, right? So the host said
Okay, but here's the thing. No, we don't. And we can actually go back to your statement, break it down, and prove how your statement is wrong.
Yeah.
So when you keep coming at us with the same scripted, incorrect assessment, and you throw in large words, and you throw in oxymorons like atheist worldview, you already nullify your argument because you're not willing to engage in discourse. You're trying to see who's going to engage with you along your script so you can prove that somehow your script is correct. Throw it out. It doesn't work for you.
Fluff. Just because you said it loudly, that does not mean that it's true, right?
Just have a discussion.
Yeah,
Kelly.
I know, I understand. So
they're hiding and listen and be willing to modify a little bit. So, what is the core question that you're getting to here? You're trying to get to?
yeah, so I'm seeing every one of us live our life based on the precepts, and then the atheistic lifestyle or thought process would inevitably lead to nihilism and depression, because basically.
Okay, so we're going to continue to talk about this without Hayden, because we know what he said. So at this point, so let's talk about nihilism. So it seems to me that if number one, the universe seems to have no inherent meaning, people are just really uncomfortable with that. And he got caught on it when by saying, why would you choose to believe this? But of course, you don't choose. If you're interested in knowing what's true, you go where the reality takes you. And the reality is that it's just physics out there. It's physics and chemistry. There's nothing like morality and meaning and purpose. We give those things to ourselves. So the discomfort of not being able to of not being able to accept that is really showing in that the way he always goes back to that first line of the script. And as far as him using the everybody presupposes line, you gotta have to be able to learn that, Hayden, because if you keep throwing out something that is wrong when everybody tells you that it is wrong and points it out to you, you start to look foolish. And that's not an insult. It is a request that you improve your ability to communicate. Okay. And now over there, you're talking about scientism and blah, blah, blah. And you're continuing on. So feel free to continue on in the comments and people will react to you over there. So, but it's time to give some other people some turns. Okay.
Hello.
Shelley, welcome in.
I'm gonna go back to.
Oh, sorry.
I just came up to give you a mental break.
Thank you for that.
You were being very patient, and I was patient too, but I'm not patient this week.
Yeah, it's a tough week.
I was not in the mood for it.
Yeah.
You're being so patient, and I don't like it when people take advantage of our patience because we want to give information. We want to clarify things and give logic and reason and pragmatic answers. We want to educate. However, there are some people that literally show up with papers. He will never deviate from what he's saying.
Yeah.
Hayden is like a rite of a passage.
Yeah, he's been here a couple of times. Well, you know, when someone, the rule of thumb that I go, if someone repeats themselves 3 times, I know we're done with the conversation. So I shift into trying to figure out what's under the skin. What are they? Do they have something that's motivating them specifically? Is there a reason they're on a script in this particular case? And unfortunately,
I have a three circle rule as well. If you're going to defend the position 3 times, I am going to throw man's moral law out the window and ask you to live by the moral standard of your faith.
Yeah.
How does it look now?
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised at the answers. But yeah, I was just gonna drop down. I'm listening. I'm passing through. I'm ghosting through support on my way to sleep. So I just wanted to make sure that I gave.
Do you have a channel that you're live on as? Do you want to push or plug?
Oh, I do go live. I was live yesterday for 12 hours, which is why I'm not live tonight.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
12 hours.
How do you do that for 12 hours?
Actually,
That's insane.
my current record is 17 hours arguing biblical law.
Well, you got more stamina than I do. I usually go 3, and my record is I think 7. But it's got to be pretty interesting to keep going.
I just did a 12-hour support today on another deconstructing live, so I missed everybody else's live. So I'm like running through right now for everybody that's awake, dropping support, doing my things, and running through, making sure that I don't miss people in the community. And I'm now following you.
Thank you for that.
So,
And I'm
welcome.
trying to click and see if
Mm-hmm.
I make sure that I'm following you too. So,
How are you
So,
doing?
hi Shelley.
Hi. How are things going?
Pretty good.
everyone.
Pretty good.
I just joined in at the last end of that, so
Yeah,
sorry I didn't get the whole context.
that's
But
okay. It went like 3-4 times around in a circle. So
okay, okay, interesting. I found your prompt really interesting. Um,
yeah,
why would you follow an ideology that tells you that you and your world are broken? Um, so I am going to, with my usual agnostic theist ways, try to tackle this prompt. It's a difficult one. Um, so I um, so I think there's two things there that you are broken and then your world is broken.
yeah,
So those are two like separate things. Okay, so I don't personally ascribe to this idea that like individuals, me included, are broken, but I do like the idea of like continuous improvement around a certain set of ethics that I ascribe to. And I like, so for example, if I have unconscious biases or unhealed traumas that I think are preventing me from moving forward according to my ethical value system, I'm going to want to work on those. Um,
fair.
Now, I don't necessarily need an ideology that helps me motivate myself to do this. However, underline, I think that if there is a ritual that I can follow that helps me remind myself of like, okay, what am I missing today? What can I do today? Or like, like a check-in or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that type of ritual I have found helpful for me. Now,
Okay.
so that's the one part of it. The your world, do you mean like the world, or what do you mean by your world?
Well, I mean, the world, I guess, because
Oh,
which
the world.
according to
Okay.
the way that they're describing it, is like all of humanity, well, it's basically all of
Uh,
humanity is what they're generally
yeah, I
referring to.
mean, like I do a lot of work, I do a lot of work in climate change and like
Yeah.
and like I'm learning more and more about how capitalism and climate are very interlinked, and then you have all these issues with unhealed traumas, and in fact, like I'm actually going to challenge even this idea of belief versus non-belief. I think that there's like the reason why I feel like I'll always be an agnostic theist, and like in the middle somewhere, is because I do think that this um, belief is also very influenced in one, like having conviction in a particular thing is also very influenced by our human um, impulse to want certainty
Yes.
and
Yes.
our
Definitely.
fear of our fear of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And
That's very true.
yeah, I have found that like my agnostic journey has allowed me to be more comfortable in the middle with uncertainty. But I've also felt that a lot more empathy for people who like, life can be quite scary. Like
Hmm.
there's a lot. With my own experiences with cancer and stuff, I think I see there's a lot of feeling that you need to kind of conviction can basically provide a sense of psychological safety. The only time that I feel worried about a sense of conviction or belief is when I think that it can underline an unconscious bias or a confirmation bias that can cause or prevent an unhealed trauma from really healing because of spiritual bypassing.
Spiritual
And
bypassing. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, spiritual bypassing. It's when like you know when somebody passes away and you get told that like, oh, don't worry, he's gonna like he's in a better place, or like um just you kind of get told like without saying so not to grieve.
Yeah.
Like you're spiritually adding a theological response that might prevent someone from actually going into that emotion. So the reason why I'm an agnostic is only because I'm number one worried about confirmation bias and how that underlines unconscious biases and what that could cause. And secondly, um, with hidden traumas, does spiritual bypassing, where you add a religious line, but then you don't actually work on the trauma itself.
Mm.
What's the impact of that? But I have to say, this is going to be my only challenge to you. I'm gonna say that I have found that even on the opposite side of the spectrum, like the full-on atheist, I'm not saying agnostic atheist, I'm
Mm.
saying full-on, like the complete opposite side of the spectrum, I have found that same feeling of conviction. And yes, it's a lot more scientifically grounded, but we also know that from a science perspective, we're learning things every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much uncertainty that's out there. So, but that conviction, I feel like, is also born out of a lack of kind of like a worry of uncertainty as well. So that's why I feel like I feel like not all who wander are lost, and
I
I'm
see.
like right in the middle.
I see your point that there is some value to having something that helps you work out imperfections in life. I mean, you can look at any self help book, and sometimes they're very useful, and sometimes they're like kind of over the top.
Yeah,
And the when you go into Scientology and religions, you get this over the top stuff. It's just like, number one, the humanity is broken. We're all sinners. It's all it starts at like glass half full kind of a thing, and then it's like the glass is cracked and
mm,
there's pieces missing, and we're just horrible people, and only by the grace of God are we forgiven for all of our horrible sins. And everything is
mm,
horrible. Every little sin is the worst thing possible, deserving of hell on earth, or hell in eternity. And it's just it's so over the top. And you listen to the story, listen to Neil 604 Atheist sometimes, and listen to the stories of people that are new to atheism, and the PTSD is fresh in a lot of
yeah,
people that he
yeah,
interviews,
yeah,
and you can hear the pain, and they not only have currently, but they talk about that they carried this pain usually from teenage years forward, or even from a childhood. Especially the idea like they felt like they were never good enough.
yeah.
The
I think fundamentalism can cause a lot of like religious trauma syndrome,
Yeah.
and I'm I'm curious as to whether there are religious paths that do not necessarily cause that kind of like just soul crushing, feeling of just automatic unworthiness to start with, kind of thing. Like God, like
Yeah.
like I've heard somebody mention, for example, that I am worthy because like if I even have a spark of quote unquote God in me, then I'm worthy, right? Like, and that totally flips that entire argument in itself. And this person was actually queer. Um,
Yeah.
so like I mean, look, I'm still going to reiterate that I'm an agnostic theist because there's certain things about religion that I'm trying to figure out.
Are you
And
Christian or a deist? I can't recall.
I'm Muslim.
You're Muslim. Okay.
Yeah, but I have some I'm basically I'm Muslim, but I'm exploring esoteric kind of
Yeah.
paths within Islam and looking at
Yeah.
various options.
I can see in
So
Christianity that there's more of a problem with being put down. I am not aware. It's been a while since I've read the Quran that exists in Islam. I don't recall that it.
yeah, it's not as much, but you get a lot of diversity within Islam as well. So you get like your huge like range between super right wingers, and then you also have like all the way to the other side, and then you have people who are like on the
Is
Sufi
that
side, like
scriptural
it's
or just more conservative based? Do you know?
a bit of both.
Bit of both.
Literal interpretation of scripture combined with
Okay.
conservative viewpoints
Yeah.
versus the complete opposite, like the equivalent of progressive Christians. You'll see the same
Yeah.
on the Muslim side, and then you'll see like your esoteric kind of metaphorical interpretations. But I
Yeah,
like the
I
agnostic
like.
viewpoint.
Go ahead.
I would imagine it's something similar to Christianity, where you have different people with different views. I've talked
Yeah.
with Muslims with different views, and hosts, I would agree with you on this. I'm also not too familiar with the Quran because I don't come across that too much. It's pretty rare for me. I did want to ask, Shelby, um, in the Quran, there's like a heaven and a sort of hell, right?
Yeah, so even heaven and hell, like, you'll have different interpretations of what that means. So some literalists will say, this is actually like what the descriptions are of heaven and hell. And then there are others who are kind of, no, the Quran was meant to be a metaphor. So heaven is more of a sense
Right,
of spiritual peace, and hell is a sense of a lack of spiritual peace in the end. Again, like
right,
for me, I'm kind of like a mix of both, where I'm like, I mean, I'm not a literalist, but I'm metaphor plus agnosticism, where I'm like, okay, the metaphorical stuff kind of speaks to me, but then also, you know, if God does exist, it would be so big beyond my sense of understanding, and like therefore agnosticism makes a lot of sense to me, kind of thing. So
okay.
yeah.
Shel, is your name Shelly or Shelby? It's kind of hard
It's
to see
actually
here.
Shaliza, but it's Shaliza, but I go
Shelly,
by Shelly here just to
Shelly.
make things
I th-
easier.
I think I've been calling you Shelby, and I apologize for
Ah, no
that.
problem. No problem.
um, so if I could just ask you the question, what convinced you that Islam is correct over all the other beliefs?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So I have to be honest. Like I was born into Islam, and but at the same time, my beliefs, even as a teenager, were very different from my parents' beliefs, let's say, or very different from, some of my other family's beliefs. So, like, Islam is my frame of reference, just like if you were born into a Christian setting, Christianity would have been your frame of reference. But there's enough diversity that you can kind of, like, you can keep exploring, kind of thing.
Right.
Um, so, yeah, like, I I find the diversity actually refreshing. Like I find it really, really interesting. Like the only thing that I'm not really keen on is um, what I mentioned earlier, and I'm a little cautious of fundamentalism.
Yeah. I was gonna, as you were
Yes,
talking, I was
absolutely.
thinking of the Universalist Church, United Universalists, the UU Church.
Yeah, yeah,
They are
yeah,
very. You're not going to have this putting down. They're very humanistic, um, and I mean that, and not in the secular sense, but the idea that it's like for the good of people, for the support of each other, emotional support, spiritual for those who are interested in the spiritual pieces. So that's something to be investigated. It depends on where you're living, if it's available to you and stuff. So
yeah. That's really interesting. I think I'll look into that as well. Like for me, it's always been, like I always supposed growing up that like religion was supposed to help with your sense of ethics of passion and all of like that was basically, you know, um, the way I felt that the purpose of religion was. But then, of course, like when you see intentional, but also sometimes unintentional weaponization, that's when things get really kind of tricky, and you're looking into like, okay, I want to go down a path that is very inclusive,
Yeah,
and
that
doesn't,
that
yeah.
describes compassion. Is probably one of the main things. Universalist Unitarian. That's the proper phrase. Church.
Interesting.
So because you'll get atheists in there, you'll get religious people that are very progressive. Typically, it does tend to be a progressive crowd. Um,
Huh.
you get
And this is like a church? Or what is this? Sorry, like, or is this like a humanist
it's
like group? Or?
it's pre-humanism in terms of current day. Like humanism these days, it officially is a secular thing. So, which I
Yeah,
don't particularly
yeah.
like because I like the idea of humanism for everybody. Like everybody, you can be a religious of any type and still be a
Mm-hmm.
humanist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's a specific church. I don't know the history of it. I'm sure it's probably at least 100 years old. I would guess, if not maybe a little bit less than
Interesting.
that, but somewhere in that range. And they're
Yeah,
very
interesting.
accepting
Cool.
of pretty much everybody who walks in the door, and they preach compassion and kindness and all above all those types of things, and getting along with people and being willing to sit next to somebody who's different than from you, and all these really kind of nice things.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, there are like minorities within Islam which kind of like echo the same, but it's just difficult to access like a congregational type setting like that,
yeah,
especially in the West. So you have to like keep exploring, but I'll definitely look into this.
yeah.
This is really cool.
Have you run into Baha'i at all?
Yeah,
What's your
I
opinion
have run
of
into
Baha'i?
Baha'i. I don't like I know them from a distance. Like I've watched some of their YouTube videos and stuff, but
Yeah.
like I haven't actually been involved in like joining a congregation or anything like that. Like I've just
Well,
from a distance, I think they're
you can
interesting.
always visit without joining too. So my experience
Yeah.
with Baha'i is they're also very kind. They are definitely science based, which is really nice. They are science and
Mm,
reality based. I've met some great and very smart people in there, but they do go into religious scripture, Christian scripture. Well, no, it's not Christian because it's an offshoot of Islam, actually, or derived from Islam.
mm,
Um, so there's a god deity in there that they sort of try to explain into the mix. So it's just like
interesting.
so I don't recommend it, but it's if you're looking for sort of like the soften things from the fundamentalism of that is in Islam, you can go to
Mm,
progressive Islam. Then below that would be Baha'i, and then below that would be like the UU Church, and then below that would be just pure out humanism and secular humanism. That's kind of the
interesting.
range.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I think what I'm worried about in the world right now is that like the extremism is really coming out of like and
Yeah.
is kind of being fused with nationalism in some areas.
Yes. Very much so.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, a little worried about that.
Yeah. I don't blame you. Oh, thank you for the follow, Angela. Um.
I just wanted to say a quick thing. I am about to dip out. I appreciate talking to you guys. Host, you gave me some new perspectives. I'm gonna apply that rule that you brought up. If a person brings up the same point
Three
more than
times.
3 times, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna definitely apply that.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta at least change your tactic at that point. At the very least, change the tactic or change the subject or do something different.
Absolutely. Yeah. Shelly, it was very nice talking to you.
Yeah, lovely
I
chatting.
gave you a follow. Hopefully, we can have some more chats. I am completely ignorant on Islam. There's like very few things I know on Islam. So hopefully, maybe you guys can educate me a little bit more. But
I do recommend reading the Quran because it is such an influential book. So I would start there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then another one is like anything by Karen Armstrong is a good bet. Like from like a book perspective.
I haven't read her, but I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that too. She's a Catholic expert, isn't she?
She's a Catholic.
Yeah, well, she's like a Catholic who studies Islam. She studies religions, but she also studies. Like she's done a few books on Islam specifically. Leslie Hazelton is also really good.
Okay, good recommendation.
Thank you. I see the couple of comments in the chat. That's very kind of you. Dubious and that's really nice.
Mad respect to Shelley on the conversation. Yeah.
That's very nice.
That's nice.
Well, hey, nice talking to you guys.
All right.
Hopefully I'll see you guys again.
Take care. I'll talk to you again.
Take care.
Take care. Good.
All right.
Bye-bye. Let's see. Hugh Ross, the astrophysicist, How Science Led Me to Jesus. Yeah, if Hugh Ross is the one who's leading you, you've been rationalized into it. Hugh Ross, for anybody who doesn't know him, gosh, what is the name of the organization? I think it's called Reasons to Believe, which right there tells you it's a pseudo philosophy when you're deciding that you want to believe and then looking for ways to get yourself there. You've already decided on your conclusion. This is not a truth-seeking process. So, Reasons to Believe is he gives himself away right in the title of his. I think he's got books and he's got a podcast. But
I think emotional health is really important to see like underneath that belief structure, because if like there is a sense of I think even going from like a sense of conviction to a sense of agnosticism, I think I felt a sense of loss for sure, and then a sense of gain after that. But initially, it was certainly a sense of loss of that, like that safety within, reduced uncertainty, for example.
That makes sense. I mean, and the people are different. Some people are less comfortable with uncertainty than others.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To the point of complete avoidance and evasion.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not everybody
and a lot
wants
of this
to learn.
Yeah, a lot of this like also stems from like fear of death as well.
Yeah,
which
sure.
is I think quite understandable. So that's why the conversations on belief, I'm like, I find it difficult because it's hard to like they're so interwoven with the psychological fears and stuff as well that it's hard to like extract.
What are you uncomfortable about on the subject of belief? You said, I forget the sentence you said a while back now, but
yeah, like I think that like when you have somebody who is really attached to certainty, for example, then like my question, instead of thinking about okay, well, what are the like logical specific reasons why, I would also be curious as to does this person like what is this person really attached to a sense of certainty, and like emotionally, that's understandable, and like maybe the real conversation is about the certainty versus uncertainty, and then the conversation about belief is like a logical thing that lens that basically is on top of that kind of thing. Like if you had talked to me while I was not an agnostic and talked to me about these like this type of discussion, I admit I would have probably found it difficult. I think my reason for going into this direction is more because like I was finding that it was affecting my own value, like my own kind of like I wanted to be more challenged with regards to certain knowledge gaps that were turning into empathy gaps in certain areas, or certain not so much certain confirmation biases that were turning into situations where I had
Empathy gaps is
I
a
had
really
cared, but
interesting phrase.
yeah, I had cared but not empathized enough.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like
It does, and
I'd
it's
cared,
interesting that
but
you're aware of wanting to have that empathy, which is I think really important. Because
yeah, I
we
think a lot of
it's really
people,
easy to get into the my team versus their team, and the empathy gets sort of stomped away like it's not a shouldn't be a factor, and that's when our humanism goes away.
yeah, and I really think there's a big difference between caring and empathy, like which we know, sympathy and empathy, but even just caring about somebody versus being able to be empathetic. I think it's not just like a difference of language. I think it's um, it's really kind of putting yourself in that discomfort kind of thing. And I felt that there was a point where, like, in order for me to continue, I had to kind of just continue to explore. Now, mind you, a few years from now, I might change. I might not be an agnostic anymore. I have no idea where I'm going, but I'm glad to know that like not all who wander are lost, because I feel grounded in these beliefs right now.
I
So
mean, life is a journey too, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
and people change their minds, and sometimes it happens quickly, and most of the times it happens very, very slowly, you know. And it doesn't
Yeah,
mean you're a
yeah,
horrible, terrible person for being in any particular position. To me, the one of the things to measure is, are you doing harm to others in some way, whether by dismissing them or by dehumanizing them anyway, or thinking them of lesser. Those types of things are triggers and red flags to me.
yeah. My favorite phrase is that knowledge gaps lead to empathy gaps.
That's really neat. I like that.
Um, and that can happen anywhere. So therefore, the conclusion of that means that you have to keep learning about populations and people and things that you may not have known before, because in order to continue to facilitate your ability to empathize.
Yeah.
And
I mean, think of this cross
agnostic,
culturally too. I mean, knowledge gaps and
yeah,
empathy gaps,
yeah,
that's huge.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's been like kind of like it's helped me because it reduces the shame as well. Um, like, I think people tend to feel a sense of shame around their morals, specifically, and then like you can basically, start thinking, okay, I have a knowledge gap around certain things, so I'm just going to just like
Shame of
step out of this framework.
shame of
Um,
what?
yeah, so a lot of people have like shame around, like, being a quote unquote good person.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I think you're not being a good
and like,
enough person.
yeah, yeah, good enough. Like, I'm not interested in good or good enough. I'm interested in better. So
Yeah.
like I want to know how, like, I'm not interested in knowing whether I'm a good person like, I'm interested in knowing whether I can continue to be a better person and what can I do to facilitate that.
That's nice because
Um,
that makes it's kinder to yourself, right? Because
yeah,
we
yeah,
all are where we are for whatever reason, and usually it's because we grew up that way, we were influenced by others. But if we're able to be willing to become one step better, then that diffuses some of that shame, I would think. And it's
yeah,
because it
absolutely.
takes it away from shame, and it just puts it into it's new. Now you have new awareness. It's like, oh, I was doing this thing that really was kind of unkind to this person or these people over here, but I'm aware of it now, and I would really rather not be that way. So rather than
Yeah,
punish yourself by going to the shame of, oh, I'm a terrible person, you think, oh, this is good now. I'm aware of this. I've learned something new. I can make a change in that direction
Exactly.
for my own
Exactly.
self betterment and for the betterment of our interaction. And, you know, the more humanistic people that we have, and I don't mean the secular piece of it, I mean by treating each other as kinder humans, the better world we will have.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. It's basically the golden rule.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I have to go, but as usual, this was lovely.
Okay.
I really enjoy these conversations.
Thank you.
So
Yeah, me
thank you so
too.
much. Thanks for having me.
All right.
All right.
Talk to you next time.
Cheers.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye. Oh, that turns off when I do that. Yeah, it's you know, there's nothing wrong. I remember hearing criticism of liberals sometimes. It's like, oh, they're going after a utopian world, and I utopia is an ideal. It's something that will never be reached. But all it is really, it is an awareness of an attempt at that there's always a way to go one little bit better. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I see the opposite as worse. The opposite would be, well, nobody wants to make things worse, but the opposite, as far as a more conservative position, would be don't rock the boat, because out of fear that change might make things worse. But when you do that, you eliminate the ability for anything to ever get better than it currently is. So you end up being just like static, ongoing static, and especially generation after generation. You're used to a certain type of behavior. You teach kids how this behavior is, and you see this in, well, lots of different cultures and religions, where this is what we do in this culture, therefore don't change it. And people end up revering tradition, I think sometimes too much. And if we, life is going to move forward. The world is going to move forward. Technology is going to move forward. Cultural complexity is going to move forward on two fronts. On one front, if population grows, that's going to change. And on the other front, if population gets more dense in certain areas, that's going to change. Dynamics will always change. We're in another period now where climate change is with us. And given what's happening in China and the United States now, people and countries pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords, this climate thing is going to get worse. People are going to be moving. Things are going to be shifting. Areas that used to be able to be farmable are going to get warmer, and they're not going to at least make the same crops. And you're going to see new zones open up further north that are able to do crops. So there's going to be movement of people, movement of resources, new need to create infrastructure for those areas. So there's going to be change. And anytime you have some people moving into another people's arena, you're going to have the potential for conflict. And of course, then there's the idea of the need for workers to build these new things, and who gets to do that work. And yeah, it's complex. It's complex. Okay, let me shift back to the questions for a while. So TikTok, YouTube seems quite quiet, so I don't know. It looks like I don't have the ability to see how many people are over there. So I'm going to guess there's just a couple people kind of coming and going. I'll be able to tell. I think I'll be able to tell later on. I think that the statistics will be able to tell me. But I know YouTube is going to be something that requires some promotion. But it's just interesting to see. Let's see. Kush, thank you for the roses. You sent 20 roses there. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Vic Vinegar, we are living in a simulation. This is an interesting concept. Somebody disproved this logically, and I don't remember what it was, but it doesn't really matter to me because it seems to be consistent. this reality we live in seems to be quite consistent. So even if it is a simulation, that's fine. That is fine. Utopia is an idea. You've been to Shangri-La. Well, you should write a tour guide. Yeah, utopias are. I like the idea of being able to. Okay, someone needs to explain to me why TikTok does that. When it hits an hour 30, it comes with a thing. It's like, we've detected an activity. It's like, I'm here, I'm broadcasting, I'm interacting, and they have to do the little puzzle match thing. This has only been doing this for about a month or so. And before that, it would only happen on rare occasions. So I don't know what the difference is. But if it's the worst thing we have to live with, it's not that's not that bad. Man, bear, pig. I think you just know if you're a good person or not, with many exceptions. Yeah, I think so. I mean, we all. Some of us, especially certain times in life. I know when my kids were young and stuff, I was in that go to work mode and just live your life and not think about things too much, and that's fine for a period of time. But and we do have the bias, granted, of thinking we are better than the average person. We all think we're better drivers and better at this and that, and that can't be true, because on average we can't all be better than the average, right? By definition. So, but we all try to be decent people, whether or not we are interested in. This is a bit of an observation on my part, that if we're interested in doing what is best for ourselves versus what is good for everybody, that I see a difference. I see, and that is more of the Ayn Rand objectivism type of thing, where competitive selfishness was what she thought led to the best society, and to me, it leads to success and misery on two ends of the scale, with very little in between. So I don't ascribe to that. Well, let me get rid of this slide here. We're off this topic again. Let's see. Let's go back to the other slide. Subjects. Ask an atheist. So I get to drag stuff around now, which I kind of enjoy doing. I think you can see my mouse going by. I need to turn this feature off. I've seen it, the feature, but I don't remember where it is offhand, so I can't turn it off right now, but I'll see if I can find it before the next show. Let's see. All right. Bad time to have a sociopath in the White House. It's never a good time. That's a fair statement. Jack says, not one single person has enough faith in Jesus. If they did, they could move mountains. Sorry, Jack. Faith does not accomplish anything. Faith is unjustified confidence in a conclusion. And, if you take faith to an extreme, it's blind faith, right? So what would be the point of that? That is the extension of the ultimate, not being having a reason to be there. So if it's just like blindly following a cult leader, because what the cult leader says is the best and the correct thing by definition, as a recipe for Kool-Aid drinking. Let's see. I'll bet you somewhere on OBS there's let me see if I can find real quick to get rid of this mouse. So throw up some questions if you guys could while I'm doing this, because otherwise I'll wrap the show up pretty soon if we're kind of come to a halt. Yeah. All right. This is not interesting for you, so I'll look at it on my own another time. So one other thing I've got to figure out here is that I heard a little bit of crackling in the audio when people were talking. I don't know if that's just their own phones or if it's at my end, so I wanted to figure that out. Okay. Well, if nobody wants to come up, I guess we're going to have a short show tonight then. So let's do that. It looks like we are... Oh, Ralph is here. Come on up, Ralph. Hey, Ralph.
Hey. So the crackling's on your end.
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll have to find it. I put up a filter.
It sounds like it's...
Go ahead.
It sounds like whenever you're starting a word, like it's almost like you're spitting every time it's hitting the mic.
Interesting.
I don't think you're doing that. Just that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. And I'm getting the same at your end. So
Yes.
I had a filter on to give noise reduction so you wouldn't hear like the laptop fan, and I turned it off and it seemed to help. So right now there's no filter of anything going on. So I'm going to have to look through the software and see what possibly I could change. So that sounds like it's something about a limiter with a attack or something like that. Maybe it's a mic setting. Yeah.
So the faith comment about moving mountains, that was a Bible reference. If you have the faith as much as faith as a mustard seed, you can move mountains. Is a biblical reference.
Yeah.
You could go up to a mountain and say, "You move over here," and the mountain would move.
That seems.
But you only need a little bit of faith to do that, and we don't see a lot of mountains moving around. So
no, we don't. It's like the opposite of Thomas, right? When they say, blessed are those who don't see and still believe. That makes it even worse.
Yeah.
So it's like believe a little and you'll get what you want. Believe a lot, you'll get what you want. Dubious Deanna, it's a peek off the mic. That's interesting. Well, I put the mic volume up today too, and I do have a limiter on it, but I keep playing around with the audio, so it'll get better and better. So, anyways.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Ralph?
I don't get the whole point of the broken world.
It is such a downer. I mean, talk about depressing. He thinks it's depressing that the world has no meaning. When you come out and tell people that it's a fallen world, it's not your fault. Well, it is your fault because you're a descendant of someone who brought down the earth by eating an apple. No matter what you do, you can't better yourself because it's all by the grace of God. What a depressing ideology.
Yeah, well, looking when I was in, it didn't really occur to me, but looking back, it's a tactic to make you feel like something needs to be fixed, right?
Yeah.
And something needs to be fixed. If it's broken, well, it needs a fix. Well, what's the fix? And so it's that basic repair need in most people, especially men, to fix what's broken.
And that's why I put cults on there, because that is a cult tactic. And, and it's only it's only through Jesus. It's only through, it's only what this guy knows. He's the only one who can resolve it. It's the cult leader who says only we have the problems. Only Scientology says only we have the courses to get those thetans out of you. We should see through this stuff. We should be smarter than this.
And someone just said in the chat, it's people who are hurt or broken feel they resonate with it. And that's the sad thing about it, is it preys on the weakest of people.
Mm-hmm. And it really is taking advantage of them, right? Because they're more susceptible because they want an answer, they want a way out. If they have a certain type of discomfort in for whatever it is, they want a way out. So someone is giving them a way out, which isn't something that works, but they're convinced. So I mean, reading when I read Dianetics, it was kind of a joke to read it, but it's just like I was kind of naive, thinking, oh, this was only people from the 50s at the time who could actually believe this stuff, and yet it still works. So it's something in human nature, especially in some more than others, that that look to others to solve their problems for them, or don't feel like they're strong enough, or I don't know. It's just not good when to inflict dehumanism on psychology on others. So, all right, I think I'm gonna wrap up. Things are quiet tonight, and I want to take a look at this audio issue and get it a little bit better for Monday. So,
all righty, have a good one.
All right, thank you for helping, Ralph. Appreciate it as usual. Take care. So everybody, enjoy your weekend. If you're into football, enjoy the games. Get yourself some pizza, whatever it takes. Me, I've got a bag of Doritos with my name on it. Whatever else comes up. Meanwhile, be kind to each other, and I will see you on Monday on TikTok and YouTube. Same time, 7:30 Pacific. Bye-bye.